Don't go to the bench.
Call it to the bench.
Optimistic heart.
We need to take out, I will put something on the record based on the defense's announcement about a witness they plan on calling today. He's a police officer, detective. They've instructed him to be here by 1 o'clock today. I filed a motion in limine. I've given them a copy this morning. I left a courtesy copy on the bench for you. There's no need to address that, obviously, at this point. I assume the defense needs some time to look at it, but I just wanted to perfect the record that we did serve them with it this morning.
Okay. Anything for the defendant?
Not at this time.
Richards. I think I bothered to say good morning, but good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
That's all right. Please be seated.
Call the witness back to the witness stand.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Mr. Dustin.
Mr. Dustin, have a seat. You're still under oath, I'll remind you. And Mr. Evans is right. I didn't say good morning. Say good morning to all of you. Good to see you all. Resume your examination, please.
Thank you, Judge. All right, Mr. Dustin, when we left off yesterday, we were finishing up some foundational elements for the 3D scanning process that you described for the jury.
Yes, sir.
And during the evening break, you informed me that there was something you wanted to correct in terms of your testimony yesterday. I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that now.
Yes, sir. As I was thinking about everything I had told you all yesterday, I think I actually made an error when I was speaking about the speed of light. So I think I said something about something to the effect of 300 kilometers per hour. It's actually 300 kilometers per second.
Okay. And that bothered you enough that you asked for an opportunity to correct that in front of the jury. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, having done that now, I want to continue on with the foundational elements for the 3D scans that were done in this particular case. And I want to show you some exhibits. This was a previous. I'm just going to put it in the record. I'll put it on the record from last time. I can find out from Brian if you want. Okay. This is 653. I'm sorry, 653. Yeah. This is going to be the courtroom. This is the original scheme. Yeah, I just didn't want to separate. I'm not going to use that, but that's the study's courtroom and cop.
You're not using this.
No, but I'm going to make it part of it.
You're not sending piece of that.
Correct. But I am tempering. It's got 3 references. These games. This is the courtroom. This is from the original scheme, 10 points. This is this. Within the cars. It's various points that we say from that one to different areas, but it's the same scheme as in the hard document. It's a duplicate. Not of everything, just the interior car. I don't think that's on that one. That's on this one, for sure. Correct. That's identical to this, but you put pinpoints that you can quickly maneuver to different areas. It's a portion of the scan.
What portion?
The interior of the
So what's the name of this?
call it pinpoint. I don't think there's really any for it.
I would say
It's an exact duplicate. It's exact. You can download it to your desktop if you want. I don't have any text in it. You'll see it's the same. Now, so ask any questions, please. All right. We're going to start with a couple pieces of evidence. While he looks at that, I'm going to show you what's now been marked as State's Exhibit 295. You were asked at some point to do some scanning in this particular case, correct?
Yes, sir, that's
Okay.
correct.
And looking at 295, this is tendered in evidence at a prior hearing. Can you confirm that this hard drive contains the original scans that you initially did pertinent to this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and in fact, you signed and initialed it so that you would recognize this hard drive when you came to court, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And in addition to that, I asked you to scan portions of Judge Staley's courtroom up in Cobb County so we could demonstrate the accuracy of the software for her, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe the thumb drive was included there.
I don't think it's that one.
You don't think it's this one? You think that's included on the
No,
hard
it's
drive?
actually on another,
Okay.
on the black thumb drive with the red.
Black thumb drive.
the blue ring.
Okay. Then I'm going to
Actually,
take that out, and I'm going to tender states 295 just to make it part of the record.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Phillips, I'm going to bag this separately, the blue thumb drive, because I'm removing it from 295. These are fair and accurate
Yes, sir.
of original scans that you produced in this
Yes, sir,
particular
that's
case.
correct. Okay.
Tender states 295.
Any objections?
In addition to the previous objections that we made to this piece of evidence, Judge, I would object to it being tendered into evidence. My understanding was that the scans were to be used as a demonstrative aid, and so I would object to them going into evidence. I obviously don't have a problem with them subject to our previous objections being marked for identification purposes, but as far as them going into evidence, that's my objection, because they are demonstrative aids. That's been the state's position all along.
Under Georgia law, demonstrative aids do go into evidence, and there may be some question about whether they go out with the jury, and we can discuss that at a later point, but I think it's appropriate to make them, to actually tender them into evidence and make them evidence in the case.
We'll put them into evidence. I agree.
No.
It's all from the same. This stuff is the same scheme. All right, let's start with a couple of items while he looks at exhibit. This is State's Exhibit 653, which is a package. It contains 3 items, but he's looking at one of those items now. So I'm going to start with 2 of the items to speed things along. The first thing that we have here is a scan disk thumb drive. Does that have your name and initials on it?
It does.
Okay, and what does the scan disk thumb drive contain in 653?
That should contain the scans of the courtroom.
Okay, scans of this very courtroom so we can demonstrate the accuracy of the 3D scanner, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And you've confirmed, looking at this, that this is a fair and accurate 3D scanner of the courtroom that we're all in right now so that we can show how the 3D scanner works.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And then this hard drive contains some specific scans that are pertinent to this case, some areas of interest that we asked you to scan as part of your work on this case, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And does this contain fair and accurate 3D scans, this hard drive that you prepared through processing this particular case?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And looking at these 2 items, would showing these items to the jury demonstrate the orientation and spatial proximity of the 3-dimensional crime scene mapping that you did in this particular case?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And it would assist you in explaining to the jury spatial proximity and orientation in terms of the 3D scanning of the items that you performed in this case?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. I'm going to tender these first 2 portions of 653 as demonstrative evidence at this point. You done with that? Okay. And let's do this before I do that. There's a third scan disk that does not have a marker on it, but this is something that you created from the actual hard drive in anticipation of your testimony today, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Is there a duplicate scan of the interior of the Tucson that's contained on this scan disk that is not marked,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
with the addition of what we call some pinpoints to let you move around more quickly and speed things along for the jury? Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And similar to these other 2 pieces of evidence, would it help you to demonstrate spatial proximity and orientation if you were allowed to display what's been put on this scan disk from the actual hard drive of the interior of the vehicle?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Tender State 653, which includes these 3 items as demonstrative evidence.
Commissioner White, With regards to, good morning, Mr. Dustin.
Good morning, how are you, Mr. Rodriguez?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well.
With regards to 653, Ms. Evans asked you if it was a fair and accurate copy, or this is the original that you created, right?
That's correct, yes, sir.
This is the original second project. Can I call it the second project? You did two different sets of scans, correct?
That's correct.
So this is the original of the second project in October of this year?
That's correct.
Okay. And, you were asked if this would assist in demonstrating the accuracy of the scans.
I think the question was the spatial relationship, if I recall.
The spatial relationship.
I believe so.
And how do you get the information regarding the spatial relationship between objects?
Well, these are all 3D data points, all right? And so they're positioned in proximity to each other.
Okay. And who provides you with information about the location of objects within the scene?
The scene was the object, the vehicle, the car seat, those were all placed. I did nothing with those.
So you certainly can't vouch for the accuracy of the placement of these objects.
I had nothing to do with locating them.
Okay. And did you create a model, an animated model of a person?
No. The model is not animated. It's just a model.
It's a model.
Yes, sir.
Did you create a model of a person?
I did.
And is that person supposed to represent Ross Harris?
Approximately, yes, sir.
And who provided you with the information to create that model?
Talking about in this project?
Yes.
I believe that I received the height from, I believe it was ADA Evans.
Or, I mean, just general dimensions, body type, that sort of thing. Did you ever?
No.
So just height.
Height, color, approximate color of clothing, and the fact he was a Caucasian male brunette.
And the model, did the model appear anywhere in your scans?
It does.
It does, okay. And how did you decide where to place the model within your scan?
Mr. Rodriguez, I'm not planning on going into the Home Depot scans, but that will assist you, which means the model will be displayed at least on direct. If you want to do that across, you can.
But all of that is on the piece
It's
of
all on
evidence.
the-
Okay, well, so who decided where to place the model in relationship to the house in Washington?
Yes. So Detective Grimstead was with me when I located that character, and he told me that looked like that was approximately where he would be.
Okay. And what about the position of the model in relationship to the vehicle?
That's actually what I mean.
I see.
Yes, sir.
As far as the direction that the model was facing, that information was provided to you by Detective Grimstead?
I placed the model. Detective Grimstead okayed it.
What other sources of information, if any, were provided to you to verify the accuracy of positioning of objects such as the model, the vehicle, the car seat, items within the vehicle?
Judge, I'm going to object. I mean, my questioning was foundational elements. I think this might be subject for cross-examination, but it's not proper for voir dire as to the foundation of the scans, especially since I'll announce to the court, I don't plan on going into the Home Depot scan where the figure is. If they want to go into it, that's fine, but they'll need to do it on cross.
if they don't plan to go into the Home Depot scans on direct, then I would submit that shouldn't be on the piece of evidence that they are tendering, or the demonstrative aid that they're tendering, because it is on this exhibit that they're tendering is why I'm asking these questions. I believe it is proper for foundation because the testimony of the expert was that they were fair and accurate representations. The sources of information, therefore, affect the fairness and the accuracy of those representations.
I'm going to sustain the state's objection.
You can't vouch for the accuracy of any source of information that was provided to you by someone else. You're simply saying that the scan you created is fair and accurate based on the information you were providing. Correct?
Yes.
I believe there's a tender before the court. What says the defense?
I'm sorry, Judge, it's the same objection.
Same rule. I'll allow whatever objection. Predicated on the state's representations.
I think this will be easier if we allow you to come to the laptop, which keeps going to sleep mode, so we'll hope that that doesn't happen during my presentation. I will ask you to speak up as I'm speaking up now, as we do this demonstration. One second. All right, now that the laptop is up, we've loaded some software on here that will allow you to display the 3D scans in question in this case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, I want to start with the scan is marked and identified as a scan of this very courtroom. And the reason I want you to start here is I want to demonstrate the accuracy of the 3D scanner. Would you be able to bring that up on this laptop so we can show it to the jury?
Yes.
While the witness is doing that, Judge, would it be possible to tilt the Mondo big screen a little bit so Mr. Harris can see?
I'll tilt it slightly. Perhaps you could switch seats. This is about as far as I can move it back, and I don't want to tilt it so much that the jurors can't see it. So I don't have any objection to y'all moving around the courtroom. This is about as far back as it can go. Can everybody see? All right, Mr. Dustin, let's bring up that first scan of the courtroom using your software so we can demonstrate how it works and what we can do in a tangible way so that the jury can see exactly how the process works.
Yes, sir.
And I'll ask you some foundational questions as you do that. Once you bring up the scan scene, are you able to, I'm going to use the term, fly around within that scene and reposition yourself in different areas so that you can see different vantage points?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. So as this populates, why don't you explain first what the jury is going to see after the 3D scan of this courtroom is brought up?
Yes, sir. So what we'll see is these are 3D laser scans that were captured here in this very courtroom. Some items may have been moved around. So, for instance, the podium. I don't know if the Mondo pad was here or not, but you will be able to see effectively, spatially, be able to move around throughout this courtroom.
Okay, so what's displayed now on this scan disc that you've just inserted, that's actually the 3D scan of the interior of this courtroom that was done during jury selection prior to the seating of this jury. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you please maneuver, you have something there, that you called it the space mouse, and I kind of joked with you, but it actually is called the space mouse, correct?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay. Using that space mouse, can you please maneuver inside the courtroom to bring us down inside so we can show the jury how this 3D scanning software works?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just pause there for a second, and why don't you just describe for the jury what we have here?
So it's a view, because these are 3D data points, so we can move anywhere in 3D space. Anywhere in 3D space, even inside of objects if you wanted to. And so what we have is I've located the position of the camera, if you will, approximately in front of this desk podium here.
Okay. And it's obviously at a raised height. Can you actually lower it down a little bit too so we can get a different vantage point? Now, how was this captured? What was the process that was used to actually get this 3D laser scan of the interior of the courtroom?
Sure. So scanner was positioned around the courtroom in various locations. I believe there were at least 2 captured from the judge's bench, 1 from the witness stand, possibly 1 or 2 from the jury box, and then in other various places within this room.
Is there a way to pull up so you can actually show the various points where the 3D scanner was placed during the scanning process?
Yes, sir.
What are these grayscale boxes that are now shown to the jury?
Those are the locations of the scan. The scan, we call it the scan head, which is just the scanner device that I showed you yesterday.
And explain to the jury why it is that you had to, we had to move the scanner to different locations. You kind of touched on that a little bit yesterday, but articulate that for the jury now.
Sure, because it's what we call the line of sight device, meaning you associate sight with it, but it's line of sight, meaning if the scanner head is in a location and there's a void on the other side of it, then you need to locate the scanner on that other side to be able to capture that data.
You had talked a little bit about some of the limitations of the software, something called noise. Are you familiar with that term?
I am, yes.
And why don't you explain to the jury in what situation might you see something that we refer to as noise, and explain what that is?
Sure. So what noise is, what we call, it's actually something called stray noise. And what stray noise is, it's when the beam on the laser actually has a diameter. If I remember correctly, it's about 2.4 millimeters in diameter. And so what happens with that, as that beam is rotated, sometimes the beam is actually in contact with 2 objects at the same time. So if I may use my laser pointer, assuming my batteries are good. So if the laser scanner head, say, was in this position, sometimes what will happen is the beam is actually touching 2 places at one time. Let me think if I can do this a better way. So the beam is actually touching on the carpet, but it can actually also be touching on another surface. So there are times where you can see what's called stray noise in between that. And it's only because the hardware can actually detect in that same beam length, that beam line of sight, it can detect this point and that point. So there's some filtering that's applied to the software to remove some of that.
Just to demonstrate, we noticed a little bit of noise yesterday when we were maneuvering through around our court reporter's table. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Would you be able to maneuver to a better vantage point so we could just show what that might look like and explain?
So for instance, in this particular area here, you can see where there's a small amount of noise that isn't necessarily associated with any particular object. And it just has to do with the technology.
Before we leave the well of the courtroom, which is basically the 3D scan of where I'm standing, can you show, you talked yesterday about the limitation that might occur in terms of 3D scans of the void just directly below.
If you notice as I move, you'll notice that the software automatically depopulates so that you can move. There are probably, right now it's displaying about 224 million data points. And so when you move the software, it does something we call derez, so that it just lowers the resolution slightly so that you can move to another location without it having to perform slowly.
Can you maneuver so that we can get a vantage point from the jury box just to show how you're able to move within a scene that's being scanned? That's from the jury box, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And how about from the witness stand?
Yes, sir, that's what it looks like from the witness stand.
And just to show a little bit further, how about over here from this rough vantage point? Could you move us there and demonstrate what the view might look like? Okay. Now, this process that you just described, you can take out the grayscale boxes, by the way, the scanners. This process that you just described and demonstrated that can be done in a scene such as an interior, can this also be done in exterior scenes as well?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and just to show an example where you asked in this case, you were asked to do the Home Depot, but we're not going to do that parking lot since we have a video of it. But were you asked to go back to Acres Mill and do some scanning there?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Before you did some scanning at Acres Mill, were you given access by Cobb Police to a Hyundai Tucson so that you could scan the interior and exterior of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you use a similar scanning process in terms of the interior and exterior of the vehicle, or did you use two different types of scanning devices?
On the initial scans, we only used the X330 originally, and so we had done some scans of the vehicle. And
when you initially went out to the Acres Mill location, obviously the vehicle wasn't there at that time, but did you still see the markings where the tires were? We had some testimony from Detective Shumpert that he had made some marks where the tires were for future dates.
yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And is that scan, the Acres Mill location, is that included on this hard drive?
I believe it is, yes, sir.
Let's bring down the courtroom then, since we've demonstrated that. You can just maybe leave it minimized, however you want to do it. And then I'm going to hand you the hard drive, and I want to go next to that exterior scene, just to show the jury how that 3D software works in a bigger area. I'm going to get you to pause there before we do anything, and I'll just let's let it populate fully. It sometimes takes a little while for the software to get all the data points and put them together so that we can see them correct.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. You actually performed the exterior scans for the Acres Mill location at our request, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And how does it compare an outdoor scene versus having to scan something like the interior of the courtroom? Is the process the same?
The process is the same, yes, sir.
Does it sometimes take a little more time?
Yes, sir, depends upon if there are obstructions in the way or whatever.
Okay. And so obviously we can't see the entirety of what's around this scene. You didn't scan the entirety of Acres Mill. You were asked to scan a particular location, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And the vehicle that's here, is this the same vehicle that you've scanned on several occasions at this point?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And having scanned that vehicle, were you able to place that in the scene based on where the tire markings are as you saw them when you scanned the initial scene?
Yes, and in addition, in placing this vehicle in this particular scene, Detective Grimstead had access to the crime scene photographs, which I did not have at that point, and at least I don't believe I had. And then I placed place the vehicle in the location as indicated in the scene photographs, and also within the painted marks on the roadway that were marked by Mr. Shumpert.
You have a fly-through feature for this particular scene, do you not?
Yes, sir.
Can you please demonstrate that for the jury?
Sure. So I have something. There's something called vantage points or viewpoints that you can create in the software that allow you to go back to that point at a later time. And so we can step through that, and then this is the same methodology that you use for generating what we call a fly-through video. So there's another plugin for the software that allows you to connect these points and then create a movie, if you will, a video.
Can you show that video associated with this one? You can move your cursor to the side if you want. This was created from the raw 3D scans that you took from Acres Mill after the crime, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, I want to ask you about this portion. Is there a capability to use some sort of box to actually remove portions of the scan so that you can see things that would otherwise be obstructed?
Yes, sir. So there's a device called, they just call it a clipping box. And what this clipping box does is you can position it over points of the 3D laser scan, and then you can effectively hide those areas. So it doesn't take them out. It's a temporary feature to allow you to, so for instance, to see through walls. So if we had taken the courtroom and we wanted to, we could have taken off the ceiling and just looked down inside of it if we wanted to.
It doesn't actually disappear from the scan. It just gives the ability to see inside things that might otherwise be obstructed.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Can we go back to your initial scan of Acres Mill? I want to ask you about certain points of that location. When you were out of that location, can you drop me down to the vehicle? And I want to look over here at this location where the tree is. What is this area that was scanned here that can be seen from the vehicle? What is this?
That's a grassy area with a tree and looks like mulch around the base.
Okay. I want to come back to the side of the vehicle towards where the door is open. You scanned pavement down here below the vehicle, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Why don't we turn around from that vantage point? Is there a sidewalk just to the past that pavement?
There is.
And there's also a little berm here as well, all within sight distance of this vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. So this pavement area is not the only area around here. There's actually other areas immediately surrounding the vehicle.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
From this vantage point, turn us back around to that grassy area in that tree, please. All right. That's in sight distance from the driver's side of the vehicle, correct?
Judge, I'm going to object to leading. I don't have a problem with questions to direct the witness to look at different items, but to simply start pointing out and testifying as to what this aid shows. I would ask that come from the witness stand, please.
Let me re-ask the question. What can be seen from this vantage point through the 3D scan?
You can see the curving area, you can see the base of the tree, you can see the wall. There's actually an electrical box, a couple of electrical boxes back here.
Can you spin around and look towards the restaurant that's immediately behind the vehicle from that same location? And back to the left a little bit. I want to go immediately to the rear. Sorry. A little more. Stop there. There's also a sidewalk and some grassy area just immediately behind the vehicle that was observed.
Yes, sir.
Can you go a little bit more to the left? And then back around so we can see the vehicle. And this, what is this that was scanned over here on the left side?
That's the sidewalk.
Okay. All right. I want to talk a little bit more about the interior of the vehicle. At some point, in fact recently, were you asked to come down to Glenn County and were you given access to the Hyundai Tucson with Detective Grimstead so that you could scan the interior of that vehicle?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And that occurred on October 15th and 16th of this year, is that correct?
I have to check my notes for the specific dates.
A couple weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
And when you scanned that vehicle, was a car seat returned to the vehicle, and were measurements, did you observe measurements being taken?
I observed measurements being taken. I didn't observe the measurements themselves.
Who placed that car seat back in the vehicle for that scan?
Detective Grimstead.
And you were actually present while that was occurring, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
What devices were used to scan that vehicle?
There were two devices used. We used the X330, which is the blue box on the tripod that I showed you. And then I also used the hand scanner to capture the interior of the vehicle.
If you will, step up close to the jury so we don't have to shut that down. Looking at States 902, do you recognize that as being the vehicle that you were asked to go out and rescan with Detective Grimstead?
Yes, sir.
And 903 is the car seat, correct?
Yes, sir.
For some of these photos that were displayed, this is 904, we can see some black and white images that are on the interior of some stickers.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain for the jury why we have the stickers in there? What's the purpose of those in terms of the laser scan?
Sure. So with the hand scanner, you use what we call targets. And so what you do with the targets is you open up the software, and so because you have more than one scan. So the way that you align them or register them together is you one scan on one panel or plane, if you will, of the software, and then on the other plane or panel, then you do the other scan. What you do is you find the common points. So you determine where those common points are, and that's what we use those fairly high contrast targets. And then there's also there are some that actually have a code on them. It's a photogrammetry code, so that the software can identify that, and it will give it a number.
Looking at States 906 by way of example, you can see some of those sticker discs that were placed inside the vehicle to help with the scanning process. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And in addition to the car seat that Detective Grimstead placed in the vehicle, was a life-size doll placed in the car seat as well.
Yes, sir.
This is States Exhibit 907. A photograph of the interior of that vehicle with,
Yes, sir.
with the doll and with the car seat that you scanned.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
908 actually shows a little bit better those discs, the black and white discs you given testimony about.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And who's that handsome gentleman in States 910?
That would be, no, that handsome, the gentleman in the photograph is myself using the hand scanner.
And that's the hand scanner that you actually showed the jury yesterday for smaller enclosed spaces.
Yes, sir, it's the same device.
Similarly, 911, looking at 911,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
you're depicted at 911 going through this hand scanner process. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, this is not the first time that you scanned this vehicle, correct?
It's not.
We asked you to come down and rescan it, Did you do that free of charge?
I did.
Looking at states 913, was I also present there with you and Detective Grimstead?
You were.
Okay. And looking at 913, did we bring digital images, from the actual processing, initial processing of the car, so we could confirm?
I believe that's where the photographs were from, yes, sir. There were photographs on your computer.
And then I want to ask you about states 914 and 915. Describe for the jury what's depicted in 914 and 915.
Yes, sir. So that's locating the X330 scan, the blue one, locating it in the driver's seat position. And so the way that we located that device was I sat down in the driver's seat. Detective Grimstead he actually used tape, so he would position himself on the passenger side and he would place a piece of tape, and then he would go to the driver's side, again placing a piece of tape, and he did that a couple of times so that he could get my eye level properly, I don't want to say documented, but so that he would know what my eye level would be. And then he also measured from the headrest to effectively where my glasses or my eyes would be.
And I want to ask you, how tall are you?
6'3", pretty sure.
Okay. And if there was testimony that the defendant is 6'2", about an inch apart from each other.
Yes, sir, that'd be correct.
Okay. And then, what part of the actual scanner is where the laser actually comes from? The blue part or the center part?
Correct. So if you recall from yesterday, so there's a mirror located in the center of the scanner, and then as that mirror rotates, then the laser beam is projected onto the environment, and then it also captures color information.
All right. Let's go back to your hard drive, and I want to ask you about the interior scans of this vehicle from a few weeks ago.
Freestyle scans?
Let's do freestyle.
You want to do those off that other phone drive?
Let's do this first, and then we'll come to the front drive. Actually, if you go to exterior vehicle first, we'll start out and move in. As we let this populate, why don't you describe what we have scanned here?
Right, so what we have is we have the exterior of the vehicle that was scanned approximately 2 weeks ago, and then we have the interior of the vehicle which was scanned with the hand scanner.
Okay. And are you able, just with our larger crime scene, or our larger 3D mapping, to maneuver around this vehicle as well?
Yes, sir.
If you will, let's just take a lap around the vehicle. And describe what issue we have here with the windows.
Sure. So glass is a problem, like I mentioned yesterday. One of the issues you have with glass is that the laser not only slows down, so any distance measurement that's captured through the glass is going to have an error to it. That because of the time calculations, it's going to be in the wrong spot. The other thing is you end up with reflection and refraction from it. So you're going to have reflected noise that bounces off the glass. And so typically what we will do is there are several methods you could do. You could actually put paper over the glass if you needed to actually detect that surface. You could also spray it with like baby powder if you wanted to actually be able to detect that glass surface. The problem with that is either way the glass is obstructed, and so the easiest or best way to do it is just to remove the glass in its entirety.
Okay. So other than you having removed the glass to get rid of some of those issues, this is an accurate 3D scan of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And you're certainly not doing that to suggest that there was no glass in the vehicle?
Absolutely not.
All right. If you could, let's go down a little closer to the vehicle on the passenger side, and then take us all the way around the front of the vehicle to the driver's side as well. All right. And are you able to move in closer so that we can get almost within the door frame of the vehicle? Okay. And you have here the black and white markers that the jury's looked at, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
What's the purpose of this yellow and black item that you have here?
It's just a photographic reference scale, so that you could use it to just check the accuracy of the scan.
I want to ask you about something else that we asked you to do before we get to our final scan. Were you asked to look at actual crime scene photos from the initial processing of the vehicle and compare them to certain points in your scans to confirm the accuracy of the placement of the scene?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I'm going to hand you the scan disc, the third thumb drive, and if you will, go ahead and bring that up. And for our record, this actually contains the same data that's on the hard drive, just with some pinpoints, correct?
Points added, correct.
Why don't you describe to the jury what pinpoints are and why we use pinpoints?
Right. Let me try to multitask for you.
Now, during this process, we ask you to look at specific crime scene photos. And I'm going to, for the record, show the jury these 4 additional photos that I had Detective Grimstead give testimony about yesterday from the initial processing of the vehicle, where you asked to see if you could use your 3D scanner and get to the approximate location of these and make pinpoints so that we can compare the positioning of the vehicle
Yes, sir, that's correct.
and the positioning of the car seat to these actual photos.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So I'm going to start with states 925. Looking at 925, can you please go to that pinpoint so we can do a comparison right here in the courtroom? I want to say it's 36. Do we have a little bit of, well, let me ask you, what is this area right here?
So those areas are voids where the hand scanner did not capture. So when I did this scan, I was trying to capture the general proximity of that car seat and the back seat.
I want to ask you some specifics about what's been marked as State's Exhibit 925, a photograph of the side of that car seat, taken before the car seat was ever removed. And I want to ask you about some seams of the car seat. Did the 3D scanning process actually capture the seams of the car seat?
Capture the seam, capture the features of the car seat and also the seams of the seat itself, the vehicle seat.
So, this seam right here,
Yes, sir.
we're point that out so the jury can see. All right. Did your 3D scanner capture the buckles?
Yes, sir.
Point that out for the jury. On your demonstrative,
You're talking about the seat belt buckles?
yes.
Yes, sir.
As I display states 925. Does that also include a a scan of the actual buckle that was used to affix the car seat to that center bench.
Talking about this here?
Yeah, point that out for the jury.
Yes, sir.
And I know your pinpoint was just trying to get to the best location that you could. We're not saying it's precisely the angle, but it's pretty close. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you also, this is very dark, but just by way of example, do you see where the base of the car, just point out where the base of the car seat protrudes a little from that seat.
Sure. So you can see from this particular angle that the base of the car seat extends over the edge of the vehicle's seat.
And is that depicted, and was that captured in your 3D scan
Yes, sir.
when that car seat was placed by Detective Grimstead?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, let's go to another pinpoint. Correct?
I believe so. Let me check the other first. Yeah.
And let me ask you while we're over here, do you see the seam of the seat that's depicted in 927 that I'm pointing at here?
Yes, sir.
Was that captured by the 3D scan that you did just a couple
Yes,
weeks
so
ago?
the seam, this diagonal seam in the seat material, it was captured by the laser scanner, the car seat was captured.
And on this side of the vehicle as well, did you observe that the car seat actually was a little bit big to the seat? It protruded over the ceiling?
So it extends over the edge of the seat.
Okay. And is that captured here in this 3D scan as well?
Yes, sir, it is.
Do you see that in State's Exhibit 927?
Yes, sir, I do.
Finally, just to confirm the placement of the seat. Again, this isn't we're not certain that this is a precise angle or as close as we could get.
Right, this is close as we can get.
You could actually maneuver it a little bit using your space mouse if you needed to.
Yes, sir.
And of course, the defense could ask you to do that too.
Yes, sir.
Do you also see a slight gap in States 927 that was captured in this photograph?
Yes, sir, I see this gap right here.
Okay. And point that out where that is so we can confirm that for the jury. Just a slight gap. Your 3D scanner caught that as well after Grimstead placed that seat. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's one other crime scene photo from before the seat was ever removed in 2014. You see in State's Exhibit 928, correct?
Yes, sir, I have.
And were you asked by me, by the way, there's some sunglasses in here.
There are sunglasses in front.
There's no sunglasses for your scanning, correct?
They are not.
Okay. Were you asked to make a pinpoint that's consistent with this vantage point from your 3D scans of the interior of the vehicle to confirm the placement of the seat?
Yes, sir.
And what number do you have for yours so we can make
That
it?
was image 50.
Your image 50 and looking at 928.
Yes, sir.
Do you see that as being?
Yes, sir. So the features that I would look for, I would look at, so for instance, the lower portion of the seat and then also even things like the decals on the side. I would look for the intersection between the seat seam and the location of that particular decal.
Okay. Having now compared your pinpoints from this exhibit to those 4 crime scene photos that show the base of the seat and where it was positioned on the bench, I now want to ask you about the scan of the interior of the vehicle that was done from the driver's seat.
Yes, sir.
When you use the Faro 3D scanner, in addition to taking a laser scan, does it also take a panoramic photograph?
It does, when you enable it, yes, sir.
And describe how that process works.
Sure. So what happens is as the scanner head rotates, like I explained yesterday, so the mirror angles, and then it will capture a photo, capture a photo, and it does a series of 85 photographs. And it does not use the photographs that are below. I don't remember if the newest version actually captures it or not. Well, it's an iPad app. It's basically, we have developed it so that you can take a look at that panoramic image, and then as you use the iPad, as you rotate, then you can view that image using the accelerometer effectively as if you are in that position.
And can you describe, what's the name of your software that you invented?
It's iViewer 360.
And do you have that iViewer 360 software here in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And the image that's included on this hard drive, can that be played using your iPad and streamed to this Mondo pad so that the jury can see
Yes, sir.
the 360 view of the interior of the vehicle from that position in the driver's seat?
Yes, sir.
Let's go to that now. And by the way, it states 930 included on that panoramic scan.
Yes, sir.
Tender 930.
Judge, I'm going to object at this time. As far as doing a demonstration that we haven't seen before, I would like an opportunity outside the presence of the jury to know what is about to be demonstrated.
Judge, they have seen this before. They saw it in Cobb County during our motions hearing. It's the same demonstration.
Judge, I'm going to ask to be heard outside the presence of the jury, please.
Please and gentlemen, step out for just a moment.
That's all bad.
Don't have time to wait. Men and women break.
Watch
Well, I
step
can
one.
stretch out to more than a minute, but I'll try not to.
Watch step one down first. Please be seated.
Mr. Sharon.
I got you.
Actions are on.
Sir.
I'm listening.
Judge, there was really no foundation laid for what was about to be displayed other than he's created an application or invented some software and created an application and then was about to do some sort of live in-court demonstration of some sort. He may have done something in Cobb County in the motions hearing, but we don't know what that is, and I certainly don't want to wait until it's already put before the jury to then make an objection. We need to see it first before something is displayed before the jury. Certainly anything that he's done on his iPad isn't in evidence, hasn't been offered as a demonstrative aid. So I think out of an abundance of caution, we need to know what's about to be shown to the jury.
Yes,
objected. This was already played for them in Cobb County. They've seen this exact thing. This is no different. And by the way, that evidence is already in. That panoramic image is already in evidence. All we're talking about is how you view it. It's no different than if we tendered a recording and put it in a laptop. You don't have to tender the laptop. In addition to the recording, you just get the evidence in. Or displaying a photograph on a document camera or something like that, or even plugging it in on a Mondo pad. This is just a means for displaying the panoramic image. It's nothing more than that. So that evidence is already in by way of 916. And also the hard drive that's got the electronic version of it.
If I may, Judge, this is really no different than what the state objected to and was so concerned about, was actually going to the same website live in front of the jury as the same web address that was in evidence. I understand that Mr. Evans is saying, well, this is the same thing that was done in Cobb at the motions hearing, but nobody had any way of knowing that until I made an objection, and that's why, out of an abundance of caution, I think it's only fair to know what's about to be put before the jury.
Well, I think now you do. And we'll take a break and you can look at that, but I don't have a problem with the technology they're using.
Excellent.
So I'm going to permit it over your objection.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know your exception to my ruling, but now you've got time to review that.
I appreciate that.
Certainly. All right, let's take a little break. I've sent them off and we'll let them have a break.
We'll put this on the iPad and show you what it looks like. We won't do it there yet. We'll just do it on.
That's even better.
How long will it take to break?